welcome to St. Bart's Kids, and today we have a great new segment called Cooking with Michael. That's right, Michael's ditched the pulpit and he's come to the kitchen and he's going to teach us how to bake something. Michael, what are we going to cook today?
Well, today we're going to prepare a basic dough that you can either use for baking bread or even make pizzas from.
Yum! Okay, so for people watching this at home, what do they need to have to be able to cook this dough?
Well, some bowls, a scale would help, some cup measures, but essentially the only ingredients that you need is flour, water, yeast, and salt.
Fantastic, so 4 basic ingredients, and I guess the first thing we need to do before we do any cooking is wash our hands?
Exactly.
All right, let's go do that.
All right.
Okay, so now that we've got clean hands, we're ready to cook.
That's
What's
it.
our first step?
All right, so get a nice big bowl and then dump your flour in there. That's about 4 cups of flour in there, and then just form a little well in the middle. Then chuck your water in. This water will be really great if it's just off room temperature, just a little bit warmer than room temperature. It's cold at the moment, so the warm water actually helps the yeast to activate and rise, because we want our bread to rise, don't we, Patrice?
We would love our bread to rise.
So in the middle, we can just put our packet of yeast. This is about 7 grams. And then we can dump our salt just around the edge as well. And then this is the fun part. This is where you get to get your hands in and get all messy. So I like to make my hand like a claw almost, and then just kind of integrate all the flour and the water together, and then mix it all together,
Now Michael, for people at home who perhaps don't want to get their fingers in there, or they have got a few kids trying to do this activity, does a spoon work just as well?
A spoon does work just as well for this first little bit, just to get everything nice and integrated. You want the water to integrate with the flour and get it all nice and hydrated.
So Michael, you were saying the secret to good kneading is not to have too much flour?
No, don't have too much flour, because what can happen is that can make the dough really, really tough.
Excellent. And what is this slamming action? I haven't seen that before. Tell us about that.
This is called the slap and fold method. You slap it down, you stretch it out, and then you bring it back in.
And what is that helping do to the chemicals, the reaction in the bread there?
So what we're actually doing, Patrice, is that we are developing the gluten. Now what gluten is that it's just like little strands that hold the dough together. And so when you bite into, your pizza crust or in your bread, you want it to be nice and, a little bit chewy in the middle. And so that's the gluten developing. Also, if you don't have enough gluten development, then what will happen is that your bread will just fall apart completely.
We don't want our pizza dough falling apart, that's for sure.
No, nobody likes a falling apart pizza.
Now, speaking of flour and gluten, if we've got special dietary needs at home, do you have any advice for people who perhaps need to use gluten-free flour, or can you use a different type of flour, like a spelt flour, and will it impact the dough?
We'll react just slightly differently to the recipe which we've given you. So just adjust as you see fit, really.
This is looking good.
So here we go. So we've got our kind of ball here almost. See how it's kind of shaggy and up the top layer is kind of tearing a bit when I do that? So that means that I need to keep on kneading.
And how do you know when it's done, when you can stop kneading?
Well, we'll just see.
Is there a secret?
Alright, let's bring this all together into a little ball. So let's look at the top here. So it's not quite breaking apart, but it's still kind of lumpy, so I might keep on working this dough for another 2 minutes or so.
Okay.
So anywhere from about 5 to 10 minutes is usually a good place to be.
Excellent. So this is a great way to get the kids involved and get them to take turns doing the kneading at home.
Anybody can do it. There's no real kind of science to it. You can do the fancy dancy way of slapping and folding it, or you can just pummel it.
Oh, punching bag style.
All right, so here we go. So we've kneaded this for about 5 to 10 minutes, and you see how it's nice and smooth? It's nice and smooth. It's not breaking apart too much. It develops the gluten really nicely. You've done all that hard work kneading it. Now what you can do is you're going to leave it in a bowl in a nice kind of warm space. You can put it above your fridge. You can, leave it a little bit in the sun. It's cold here at the moment, so what you want to do is leave it for around about an hour, or until this has doubled in size. So it really depends on the temperature. If it's slightly cooler, it'll take a longer time to rise. If it's slightly warmer, it'll take a shorter amount of time to rise. But simply cover it up with some Glad wrap and then leave it for an hour and come back, and it would have risen.
Oh, excellent. All right, well, let's go find somewhere warm to put this, and we'll come back soon and see what happens. All right, so Michael, we're back here now. Our dough has clearly risen.
See
nicely.
this? Yeah, it looks beautiful. Nice and airy, nice and light, not too dense.
So what's our next step?
Well, to do some bread, we're just gonna pull this out. We don't wanna get rid of all that air in there, because that's all nice and lovely. So I'll just put a little bit of flour out on the bench. That's okay. And then a little bit of flour on my hands. And we'll just kind of loosen this dough from here. Don't want to let all the gas out, but if a little bit gets out, then that's okay. Oh, it's a little bit sticky. Probably need a little bit more flour on my hands. That's okay.
Now, if people at home want to add extra ingredients to their dough, like sultanas, raisins, spices, when is it best to do that?
Probably do that right after kneading. Just kind of integrate it in there, just kind of roll it up a little bit, because that can be really good as well. It'll be really nice and tasty.
So that'll be in there while it's in the rising.
Yes. Yeah.
Fantastic.
All right, so I've got my dough here. I'll just kind of spread it out into like a square shape. Nice bit of rectangle, and then bring the top over, sides in, back over the top, and then just give it a bit of a roll. You just want to make it nice and tight. It doesn't have to be too precise. It'll work out pretty well.
So what you're trying to do is trap a bit of air inside your bread?
Yeah, trap a bit of air inside, make this kind of skin on the bread really nice and tight. And then what we're going to do is tuck in those ends. And you can use the bench without flour on it, just as a bit of surface tension. And then all I've got is just a simple baking tray with some paper, a little bit of flour on the bottom, not too much. Then I'm just going to put this on here and let it rise for another 30 to 45 minutes. It doesn't have to double in size like we did before, but this will just kind of rise up a little bit before we put it in the oven. And now would be a great time to start preheating your oven to around about 200 degrees or so.
Okay.
And then we'll see how we go from there.
Fantastic.
So we've just left our dough to kind of sit and rise for about 35 to 45 minutes or so, depending on how cold or how hot your kitchen is. Now it's time to bake. So what we're going to do simply, before we chuck it in the oven, which we've preheated to about 200 degrees, is just put a little bit more flour on the top, get a sharp knife, and then we're just going to simply cut over the top. Just a couple of cuts, all right? So really quick, doesn't have to be too perfect. And that's gonna open up real nice. All right, now we're gonna chuck it in the oven.
So Michael, I think it's time to check the oven and see if our bread's ready to come out.
Yeah, I can smell it, so let's go have a look.
All right.
All right, so here we go. I think it's pretty phenomenal that our bread has gone from something like this, although not quite this small, to something like this. It's risen.
It has risen.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
So what you want to do now is that you want to let it cool for at least a couple hours until it gets to room temperature. I don't quite have that patience this afternoon,
I know,
so I
it
just want to
smells
cut
amazing.
into it.
Yep.
What do you think, Bea?
I think you need to cut it open.
All right, let's do it.
Listen to that crunch.
Smells good, looks good.
It smells amazing. Look at that, everyone. I hope your bread at home turns out to be this good.
It's as easy as that.
It is easy as sliced bread.
Yeah.
Nice. Now,
Yeah, it looks good.
what's your favourite topping to put on bread?
Me, just some good old-fashioned butter.
Yeah.
Slather it on.
Yeah.
Don't hold back.
Let it melt in.
Oh yeah.
Well, we can't wait to see what you cook in the oven this week, whether it be bread or pizza dough or bread rolls. Have a go at Michael's recipe and send us your pics.
Yeah, love to see how you go.
All right.
See you
Thanks,
later.
Baker Michael.
No worries.
Bye.
See ya.